welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in today's video, we're going to be doing some book recommendations, but we're going to be doing them a little bit different than usual. So on Instagram, I put out a poll asking you guys what you guys wanted to see. If you wanted to see an indie bookstore day video themed around the indie bookstores in my area, or if you wanted to see a video with book recommendations of if you liked this, then read this. And that is the option we went with. So we're doing this a little bit unconventional. So usually it'll be like, if you like this book, read this book. But in today's video, we're going to be doing, if you like this Disney Channel original movie, read this book. These ones are all based on vibes. And if I think that the vibe of a certain book kind of goes along with or is compatible, has similar themes with a Disney Channel original movie. So let's get into our recommendations. We have kind of a lot to go through, but I will explain why I think that these are similar, go together, have the vibes. The first movie that I have a recommendation for is Twitches. This one basically raised me. I was obsessed with Twitches so much. I wanted to have a freaking twin witch somewhere out in the world. I thought that was such a fun movie, and I absolutely love Tia and Tamara Mowry. I think that they're so talented and they were such good child stars. So to kind of go along with the themes of, you know, siblings who have magical powers, have to kind of like venture off into this like fantasy world. They don't really know a ton about their parents. I have The Other Side of the Mirror. This one is by an indie author local to me. Her name is Dana Evan. And so this one follows our main character, Eva, I believe is her name. And she basically witnessed her family get like attacked and murdered. She has a twin brother. Basically, she learns that the fancy mirror in her house is like a portal to another world. That's basically the best way I can explain it without giving away too many spoilers. So very similar to how the Twitches in the movie have their little like portal to go back to their like home world. That's exactly what our main character Eva has to kind of go through. This one is a little bit more on the romantasy side. There is a love interest who is like her mate, and all kinds of like hijinks ensue while they're like traveling through the worlds to kind of get her to where she actually needs to go. But still, like I said, very similar vibes with the whole twin theme, with the sibling theme, not really knowing who your parents are, kind of uncovering mysteries as you like are older. And then also kind of going along with the theme of a whole different world being on the other side of something as simple as a mirror. And Twitches it's a door, but you still get kind of that same vibe and premise. This one's pretty short. She's kind of a skinny legend, but it is the first in a trilogy. So I haven't picked up the next one in the trilogy, and the third one's not out yet, but I'm very hopeful to pick up the next book in this very, very soon. The next movie that we're going to talk about is Jump In. I don't know if you guys remember Jump In, but I know I was a huge Corbin Bleu fan. I believe Kiki Palmer is also in this one from when she was young, so that's super fun. So for that one, I decided to go with Check and Mate. This one's by Ali Hazelwood, and it is her YA debut, kind of focusing on the world of playing chess. So in Jump In, we have Corbin Bleu's character who is not super like familiar with this whole jump rope vibe, but he like kind of goes along with it and like kind of has his little like ragtag team of girls that he's going to be jumping rope with. And that's kind of similar to how our main character, Mallory, ends up getting back into chess. She was kind of a chess prodigy when she was a kid, and she fell out of it as her parents kind of were going through a divorce. So she steps away from chess, decides she doesn't want to do it anymore, then does it randomly for fun one time and beats the number one chess player, and basically ends up getting thrown back into the deep end of playing chess so she can, you know, support her family. So that's very similar to Corbin Bleu's character in Jump In. So I thought that was a kind of cute, fun kind of tie-in. The next movie that we're going to talk about is the Lizzie McGuire movie. I'm honestly not 100% sure if this counts as a Disney Channel original movie, but again, it's one of those that they played on the Disney Channel all the time. This movie basically raised me, and I'm pretty sure I could quote almost every single scene in it. So for that one, we went with Spanish Love Deception. This one is by Elena Armas. And so in this one, we are following Catalina Martin. So she is going to her sister's wedding in Spain, and she lied to her family and said that she has an American boyfriend. So her coworker ends up coming with her to this wedding as her plus one to kind of throw her family off and, you know, make them think that she actually has this tall, broody American boyfriend. So with this one, I feel like this is a little bit more like fake dating. I still thought this one really ties in well with the themes of, like traveling, of kind of self-reflection and self-discovery, even though Catalina is obviously older than Lizzie McGuire in the Lizzie McGuire movie. But she goes through this kind of epiphany of she's not going to let other people's like opinions and thoughts on her kind of, hold her back. And I think that Lizzie McGuire goes through that exact same journey, just as like an aged down version of it. So I thought this one was a really good kind of comparison. The next movie that we're going to talk about is the Cheetah Girls. We know and we love the Cheetah Girls, the ultimate like feminist icon movie of the 2000s. And so for that one, the book equivalent that I'm going to recommend is the Twisted series. So with the Twisted series, it follows 4 different main characters, and each book follows like a main girl and her love story. And they're a group of 4 best friends who obviously are different, but they're still like connected. They're still the same, and they would do literally anything for each other. So our first book follows Ava and Alex. And in this one, it's a little bit of more like brother's best friend. Her brother is going out of town, so he tasks his best friend with watching out for Ava over the summer. She's a little bit naive. She's in college, but she acts really young. And so he wants to make sure that, she's taken care of. And so that's where this story follows. The second book in the series. So in Twisted Games, we are following Bridget and Reese, and that one is a princess bodyguard romance. In the third book in the series, Twisted Hate, we are following Ava's brother Josh and her best friend in the friend group, Jules. And they are kind of an enemies to lovers, and they have that kind of banter going on. She's a lawyer student, and he is a doctor. And then the final book in the series is Twisted Lies. And that one follows Christian, who's a billionaire, and Stella, who's an influencer. Like I said, with the Twisted series, it's very reminiscent of the Cheetah Girls and how it is this kind of group of 4 friends who would really do anything for each other at the end of the day. They're always there for each other. They're a really good example of what female friendship can be when you kind of support and uplift each other instead of trying to tear each other down. So I really enjoyed Twisted Love and how it focuses on, all of the storylines and introducing all of the characters, and the rest of the Twisted series does get better. This is my least favorite one in the book, which is unfortunate, but you can't all be winners. I mean, they had that third film that was just the 3 of them in India, and I'm still kind of confused about how that one was greenlit. The next movies that we're going to talk about are the Halloween Town movies. I know that there is the first original one that is kind of aged younger. I believe Marnie is 13 in that one, and we kind of follow her as she ages and as she matures and goes through more things until she finally starts university at the very beginning of the final movie in that franchise. But I feel like that one is the most reminiscent of A Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon series. I don't know what this actual series is called. I just know Witch's Guide to Fake Dating a Demon is the first one, and A Demon's Guide to Wooing a Witch is the sequel. There is a third one, and I believe that one's a werewolf. But the main reason why I'm comparing these to the Halloween Town movies is they are set in like our world. They're just regular, everyday people in these worlds, but some of them do have magical powers. So it's a little bit like reminiscent of how, these monster characters come over from Halloween Town and they kind of assimilate into the high school. And then by the end of the Halloween Town High movie, they're kind of, known as being, a little bit different than just the everyday people. So I really enjoyed both of these books and think that they kind of give that same vibe of, fantastical characters, whimsical creatures in a modern, everyday, normal setting. The next decom that I want to give a book recommendation based on is Luck of the Irish. And for this one, I would recommend the Nightmare Before Christmas series. I, again, don't know what the series is actually called, but the first one is Nightmare Before Christmas, and the sequel is Go Luck Yourself. And so in this one, there are families that are tasked with making sure that each holiday that we celebrate kind of goes off without a hitch. They're the main people that are making sure these holidays happen. They're making sure that the joy of their holidays is kind of spread and felt, and that's how they get kind of their power to continue to do their holidays. In Nightmare Before Christmas, we have the Prince of Christmas and the Prince of Halloween, and it has their little love story. And then in Go Luck Yourself, we're following the other Prince of Christmas, his brother, and the Prince of St. Patrick's Day. And so that's the main reason why I feel like this one kind of goes with Luck of the Irish. While in Luck of the Irish, that's not 100% how everything goes down. And there is a little bit less involvement about the actual holiday itself. The guy is just a leprechaun. I feel like these ones do kind of tie in, like I said, that kind of like fantastical element, that little bit of, magic in everyday worlds. Not gonna lie, this one's a bit of a stretch. And I won't be mad if you guys say that this one is not a good comparison, a good recommendation. It just makes sense in my own brain, and the vibes are kind of there. So, Lemonade Mouth is iconic. I would recommend You'll Be the Death of Me if you liked Lemonade Mouth. So I know in Lemonade Mouth, it starts out with them just being in detention and them kind of forming their little band and kind of the journey they go on as a little friend group from there, as like a band of misfits who didn't expect to form a band. Well, in You'll Be the Death of Me, we follow three main characters who decide to skip school one day after accidentally witnessing their classmate go into a building and get unalived in said building. So very, very different premises, very different plot lines, but the overall kind of unfolding of the story and the way that things kind of work out and the way the friend group evolves, I feel like is reminiscent of Lemonade Mouth. I feel like we have the little bit of a love story, that little bit of tension in there between the main girl character and one of the male characters. We have the kind of aspect of, jealousy in there. We have aspects of wanting to, like evolve, grow up, kind of change, and the way that they are able to express themselves as they're kind of uncovering this mystery and revealing secrets about their own lives. So I feel like You'll Be the Death of Me is the thriller version of Lemonade Mouth. I don't know. Take it or leave it. The next DCOM that I'll be giving a book recommendation for is Smart House. I feel like this is one that I watched the least growing up, and I don't know if it has to do more with like the timing of when it came out or like the actual premise of the movie. All I really remember is that there's like a lady who's like in charge of the house, and like she's like a robot doing all of the like things in the house. And so that's really all I remembered about Smart House, is the family moves in and there's basically like a built-in maid like already included in the house. And so for that recommendation, I decided to go with This Delicious Death. This one is a kind of like futuristic fantasy-ish book. I can't really think of how to describe it, but basically, 2 years ago, a small percentage of the population underwent a transformation called the hollowing, and they basically become like zombies. They basically need to eat human flesh in order to survive, and there's only a small percentage of the population who like underwent it. So it's kind of on the rarer side, but we are following a group of girls, and one of the girls did go through the hollowing, so she does need to consume human flesh. And so in this book, they have developed some science and technology to make synthetic human organs for these people who went the hollowing to undergo. And so these four girls decide that they're going to go on their little senior road trip that they'd had planned before the hollowing even happened. And in undergoing their little road trip, they go to a music festival and uncover a big plan to make the people who underwent the hollowing part of like the enemy, and all this technology that's going into making them even more disastrous than they already were. And that's kind of why I went with this recommendation for Smart House. It has a lot more to do with the technology aspect, the scientific aspect of like changing things about people. And I feel like that's a lot of what Smart House had to do with, if that makes sense. Like I said, I didn't watch that movie as much growing up, but I thought that that one was a pretty interesting take on the like science fiction-y kind of genre, and I feel like it kind of fits with the narrative we get in Smart House. Speaking of futuristic things and sci-fi, the next book recommendation that we're going to get is a recommendation based on Xenon Girl of the 21st Century. This is another one that I did not watch very much growing up. I really only remember the like music number of the like band that she really wanted to see, that like random guy performing, and I just remember being like a little kid and being like, he's not really cute. So for the book recommendation for Xenon Girl of the 21st Century is Blood Like Magic. I recently read this one. It was part of my 25 books to read in 2025. And in this one, we're following Zoya, who is tasked to kill her first love. But the main aspect that I think is relatable to Xenon Girl of the 21st Century is just the overall fact that this world is much more technologically advanced than, our current world. People can undergo these things called mods where they're able to change their genetics and kind of change their appearances, do all kinds of things. And like magic is kind of normalized in their society as well. So a lot of people know about magic and it's not that like wild or crazy to, be a witch. So I think that that's why I ended up going with this one for Xenon Girl of the 21st Century. The next decom that we're going to give a book recommendation for is Wendy Wu, Homecoming Warrior. This is another one that I feel like raised me. I watch this all the time. I absolutely love Brenda Song, and I absolutely loved this movie and kind of like the premise of, like an ancient history kind of warrior thing going on. And so for that one, the book recommendation I went with is Fate of Wrath and Flame. This is actually the first book in a 4-book series. So I'm only holding up the first one, but I feel like this is going to be pretty applicable to all 4 of the books. So in this one, very similar to Wendy Wu, Homecoming Warrior, when the guy kind of time travels, he thinks that Wendy is the person he's looking for, but she like has absolutely no idea what he's talking about and no memory of like doing any of this stuff. Very similarly, our main character in this book, Romaria, is sent to a different world to be the like princess who tried to assassinate the king and queen when she married the prince. And so she really doesn't know like what these people are talking about when they're talking about, all these like things that she's done. And so she kind of has to backtrack and figure out why the person she's impersonating did those things and kind of course correct and fix that narrative since she's now stuck in their world. So a little bit different than Wendy Wu Homecoming Warrior, but it still has that like other identity kind of mystery aspect in it. And it goes into history a little bit, but a history of the world that we're in, not like normal American history. So I think that that's also another aspect that made this story really fun and fast paced. Even though we're talking about history, we're talking about, like a history that's not our own and a whole other, kind of like drama that's happening in another fantasy world. Going back to our Queen Brenda Song, another film of hers that I absolutely adore is Stuck in the Suburbs. That one featured her and, oh my gosh, what was that one girl? Danielle Panabaker, that was it. And Taran Killam, who later on went to star in Saturday Night Live, I believe is the only other thing I know him from. But overall, loved that movie. It's basically about 2 girls who are obsessed with a pop star and accidentally run into him and kind of start to uncover that he's just an ordinary guy and not some big, massive celebrity like they'd made him out to be in their heads. And that's why I think that a perfect book to read if you like that movie is Funny You Should Ask. So in this book, we are following Chani, I think is how you pronounce her name. And so she gets her kind of big break interviewing a celebrity and doing a kind of ride along with him as he was becoming, a breakout star. And so it is a then and now timeline where you see her when she does the original interview. And then she goes back, I believe, 10 years later to kind of redo the interview, see where this actor is in his career at that point. So that's the main difference, I think. But the main thing that's featured in Funny You Should Ask is really kind of like that exploration of celebrities as normal people and how they do face our normal challenges. They're exactly like us. And so I think that Funny You Should Ask would be a really good complement to Stuck in the Suburbs. Okay. The next decom that I have a book recommendation for is a little bit of an older one and another one that, again, I did not watch as much as I wish I had when I was a kid, but I do remember it scaring the crap out of me and me not seeing the ending coming. So that is why I'm recommending They Wish They Were Us. This one is a YA mystery thriller. So with They Wish They Were Us, we are following our main character, Jill, and she is a part of a like super prestigious group at her private school where they kind of get the best of everything. They only select 6 students from each year to be a part of this like elusive, mysterious, super like important group. And so Jill is one of them. And as she's kind of reminiscing on her time in high school, as she's closing in on this chapter of senior year, she's thinking about her best friend Shayla, who was murdered their freshman year of high school. And she starts to think that Shayla's boyfriend Graham, who was arrested and convicted of her murder, might not actually be the person who killed her. And so Jill decides that she's going to start uncovering what actually happened that night, finding answers for these really tough questions. And while that isn't super directly tied to Phantom of the Megaplex, where it's literally some kid's like afternoon job where he just like works at the movie theater, I still feel like the way that these stories kind of wrap up is pretty similar, even though, again, it's like not as serious as like actual murder. I do feel like these two actually like kind of scared me. They were a little bit more intense than something that I was expecting at the time. I mean, like a YA thriller, it's not going to be that scary. No, like it was actually like pretty intense. The next movie is another bit of a mystery, Get a Clue, which again features our queen Brenda Song and Lindsay Lohan during her peak. So for that one, I would recommend A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. So this one and Get a Clue, also not super thematically linked, but I still feel like the vibes are what links them. They both have the same vibe, like girl boss, figuring stuff out, putting herself to work, getting to the bottom of what she wants to get answered. I feel like that is truly what we're getting here. So that's why I would recommend it for Get a Clue. The next DCOM that I have a book recommendation for is The 13th Year. So this is the one that features a boy who, getting closer to his 13th birthday, he starts to develop characteristics that make him think he is a mermaid. And he kind of has to uncover what exactly is going on with that. So for that one, I would recommend To Kill a Kingdom. This one is a fantasy that features kind of that like more deep sea kind of vibes. The main character starts out as a siren. Her mom is mad at her, and she ends up kind of having to join this band of pirates and seeing what it's like to live as a human, what she kind of has despised the most. So a little bit of a reverse on going from a human turning into a mermaid. We start as a siren, we turn into a human. But I still feel like this one gives the exact same vibes. It's a little bit darker, but it's giving the vibes of that kind of like sea coastal kind of life. The next Disney Channel original movie that I have a recommendation for is Pixel Perfect. This is one that I feel like I didn't watch a ton growing up. All I really remember is that it's about a band who needs a new like front person, a new lead singer, and they end up coming up with a literal like pixel digital girl who's not real, and she wants to become real. And that's kind of the whole premise of the movie. And so for that one, I would recommend The Love of My Afterlife. Again, a vibes thing, not plot wise. Homegirl's not in a band. Homegirl is a real girl, but the vibes wise, I feel like gives a similar premise. So this one is following Delphi, and she chokes on a microwavable hamburger and ends up going to like where they process souls and like help you, navigate the afterlife. But she ends up bumping into her soulmate there. So the person who is supposed to be helping her navigate her journey into the afterlife is like, hey, wait, I'll let you go back to Earth and like live your life if you can get your soulmate to kiss you. And I feel like while that's not the premise of Pixel Perfect, it gives those vibes. And it feels like one of those early 2000s kind of teeny bopper rom-com-y kind of movies. So I feel like this one is another vibes pick, but it makes sense, I promise. Okay, the next one that I'm going to have a recommendation for is something that I believe ended up becoming a TV show as well. It's the My Babysitter is a Vampire franchise. So in that one, we basically have our main boy whose mom is, I believe, going on a date, or his parents are doing a date night, and they end up giving him a babysitter because he can't be trusted alone. It's a girl who goes to his school who ends up being a vampire. And so for that one, I would recommend the My Roommate is a Vampire duet trilogy. I'm pretty sure another book is coming out later this year, and I don't know the name of this actual series. But the first one is My Roommate is a Vampire, and then My Vampire Plus One is the sequel. And so this one follows a couple of different vampires. And in the first one, this vampire has kind of been asleep. He's been slumbering for the past, couple centuries. And he ends up getting a roommate to kind of teach him how to live in modern current society. And then this one, it follows our main FMC who needs a wedding date to convince her family that she's not just alone. And she gets this vampire to kind of be her plus one to a wedding. So I feel like it's not the exact same premise, but it's pretty similar vibes. It's still got vampires. And the last DCOM I have a recommendation for is The Color of Friendship. All I really remember about this one is it's about a girl who gets an exchange student. And so she's super excited to host this exchange student and thinks that it's going to be like a really great time. But her exchange student comes from South Africa, which was during the time of apartheid. So it was very like racially like segregated, and there was a lot of like different issues with class. And so her, exchange student couldn't really figure out like how American society worked, and they had to kind of like help each other understand like where they were coming from and teach this South African exchange student that like things in America are different and like how the world should be, and we shouldn't base our opinions on people based on the color of their skin. And so for my recommendation for that one, I would go with Red, White, and Royal Blue. This one is another one for my 25 to read in 2025 that I read earlier this year. It follows Alex, the president's son, and his little romance that happens with the prince over in England when they are kind of caught fighting at someone's wedding. So I feel like even though they're very different vibes, it is similar in the respect that it talks about, like how race factors into things, whereas, like white people don't typically have to focus on things like that. They don't have to think about things like that. Whereas someone who does have an ethnic background has to factor in those things in the way that they carry themselves and live their daily lives. It also focuses on cultural differences in other countries, talking about how, American politics are viewed versus how things are viewed in the British royal family. So I think that this one is going to be a really good pick if you liked The Color of Friendship. Awesome. So that was all of my book recommendations based on Disney Channel original movies. I hope that I gave enough recommendations. I feel like I recommended a lot of books there. We did kind of rapid fire it because I didn't want this video to be like 2 hours long. But I have read all of these books and do highly recommend all of these books. I feel like I wouldn't be putting them in this video if I didn't recommend them at least a little bit. So yes, that will be the end of the video. Let's go ahead and do the mouse emoji. Oh my gosh, I'm getting really good at picking emojis to put in the comments at the end of these videos. If you made it to the end, do the mouse emoji. So that way, first and foremost, everyone who doesn't watch the end is going to be really confused, but also that will signify that we're all just Disney adults at the end of the day. Awesome. Well, have a good rest of your day. Thank you for spending some time with me, and I will see you in the next one really soon. Bye. Hi, pretty girl. You want to be in this video too? She just wants to be the center of attention. You do? Look at that pretty kitty. She's so pretty. She's so pretty. I guess this is the Opal show now. But back to book story time with Twisted Love. And the entire Twisted series, like I said, it follows these 4 friends. And they're a really good example. He's just a normal, ordinary guy and not this big, massive, a kind of like ride along. Oh, well, can you lay down? Can you lay down, please? I love you. Hi, baby. Can you lay down, please? Hi, Bixby. Do you want to be in this one too? You weren't in the last intro. Okay. Guess we're doing our intro this way. Sorry, I had to read the back to make sure I'm not giving spoilers. There's cat hair in this book. That's fine. I thought her name was Anna Arms. How many times can I say discovery in one sentence? Reese and girl. Shit, what's the girl's name? I'm like, I should have done research on this. How many Halloween Town movies are there? 4? That was the best I could come up with. Yeah, maybe I should have rewatched some of these movies now that I'm thinking about it. Panabaker, was that it? Kristen Panabaker? No. And then Taryn Killen, who later went. Why am I holding the book? I usually predict the ending really well. By Jessica Goodman. Oh my god, I haven't been saying who half these are by. Shit. You guys can read. You know how to read, so I'll just let you guys figure out who wrote most of these books. But with hi baby boy. Oh god, what is her name? There's a receipt in here. Jill. So let's start over. This is literally a receipt from like 2022. Like, oh my god, it's like 3 years old. My freaking head itches now. Okay,